My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend now, secretly applied for a loan under my name. I didn't know until the debt collectors started calling me at work. That was the second week of July. I remember because I was between two back-to-back meetings and juggling an Instacart order for my mom. She had a dizzy spell and we were waiting on lab results when my phone vibrated with one of those restricted numbers. I don't answer those normally. But they called again and left a voicemail with the phrase that makes your stomach drop immediately. This is an attempt to collect a debt. I called back in the hallway by the copy machine. The fluorescent light hummed. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears like a drum. The woman on the line was polite in a way that felt like a script. She read my full name, my current address, the last 4 digits of my social. She said a balance was past due, 14,200 and something from a personal loan taken out in April. She repeated slowly, authorize or dispute. I laughed. It came out ugly and wet and hysterical. I never took out a loan, I said, and I knew I sounded like every liar they probably talked to all day. She explained what I would need to do if I believed it was fraud, police report, FTC identity theft affidavit, freeze my credit. Their investigation team would open a case, but the calls would continue unless the original lender flagged it. I scribbled it all down on the back of a printed agenda and then just stood there looking at the black ink bleeding from my sweaty hand thinking, how? Let me back up. I'm 31. I work in healthcare admin, not glamorous, but steady. I keep a spreadsheet for everything because it's the only way I can function under the pile. My mom is 62 and a stubborn hurricane of a woman who went back to work too soon after her surgery and then acted surprised when her body wasn't a machine. I take her to appointments. I pick up prescriptions. I show up with soup in Tupperware and grab the mail and put the phone bill in my name because her credit tanked after my dad left, and I was dumb enough to think this is what love is. Plugging holes with your fingers until the water level gives you a fighting chance. And then I started dating him. Let's call him Jake. Met him through a mutual friend at a barbecue where he brought a bag of ice and a 6-pack and 0 chairs, which should have been my first red flag given the ratio of mouth to contribution that would define our relationship. He was funny. He remembered small details about stories I told. He dropped, "Babe, I got you," like punctuation. He had opinions about everything, the kind of guy who could sound confident about a topic he'd Googled once. There's a charm to that swagger until you realize it's smoke. He moved in slowly, a drawer, a toothbrush, his gaming console, and then all at once when his lease fell through, which meant he and his roommate got into a screaming match about rent and the roommate changed the locks. He promised it would be temporary. He had a contract coming. He'd pay more than his share once the project landed. Meanwhile, I was doing what I always do, being reasonable. I let him throw his laundry in with mine to save water. I gave him the spare key. He got comfortable. He learned the rhythms of my life, where I keep the fireproof folder with my birth certificate and social security card. The pin I careless whispered because he won't be long in the store, babe, and you know how I always forget my wallet. The way my phone lights up with every click of an alert from my bank because I'm the only person I can rely on to catch mistakes in time. It started small, a DoorDash order at 2 a.m. that wasn't mine. "Oh, babe, that was me. I was starving. I'll transfer you." He didn't. A parking ticket on my windshield after he took my car to the gym. "They must have changed the street cleaning sign. Don't worry, I'll handle it." He didn't. A quick borrow of cash I'd literally saved with a label, an envelope marked Momco Pay, taken from the kitchen drawer. He cried when I confronted him about that. Actual tears. Told me he'd forgotten what that envelope was, that he was so stressed, that he just needed a little relief and didn't want to bother me with it because he knows I carry so much. He painted himself as the considerate one even while the evidence hung on the fridge with a magnet. I bought a small safe after that. I'm not stupid. But it turns out you don't need a crowbar when you already have the keys. People told me I was dramatic. My friends, not malicious, just not in it, rolled their eyes when I said I don't like sharing passwords. He's your boyfriend. If you can't trust him with your PIN, why are you with him? That's the kind of logic that gets women like me twisted into knots. If I say no, I'm cold or controlling. If I say yes, I'm reckless. Either way, the mess lands in my lap. Fast forward to April. I was drowning at work. The clinic transitioned to a new system and half the providers treated the rollout like a suggestion. My mom's insurance randomly decided to reassess eligibility. I got an email from one of the credit bureaus about a hard inquiry on my file. I skimmed it while waiting in a pharmacy line with 3 people ahead of me and a toddler screaming bloody murder behind me. I thought, probably the phone carrier when I upgraded mom's plan, marked it unread to circle back later, and never did. That's on me. Another email, "Congratulations on your loan approval." Went straight to a folder because the email address looked spammy and I filter anything that looks like a timeshare in disguise. Then April turned to May and my hair started falling out a little more in the shower, and I told myself it was stress and kept moving. So when the collector said the loan originated in April, part of me felt sick in that specific way of watching a puzzle snap into place. I was there. I was in my living room while that application was being filled out, probably humming to myself while chopping onions or on hold with an insurance rep from a call center in Iowa. The collector couldn't tell me much, obviously, but she confirmed the lender. I Googled them, and they were legit. Not a back-alley payday loan, but a fancy tech Y1 with commercials about consolidating your high-interest debt. Their website had a dashboard login. I didn't have an account, except apparently I did. My name, my email address, just a slightly altered password, and I was in because some part of me is predictable to someone who's watched me enter it 1,000 times. The loan amount stared back at me like a dare. $15K, funded the same day. The disbursement went to a checking account. I didn't recognize masked digits, but the bank name was one I've never used. There were notes, timestamps, and e-signature that looked like a child's attempt at my name. There was also an address for primary residence that wasn't mine. It was his friend's place, the one with the roommate drama. I walked into our bedroom where he was on his headset yelling at a teenager on the other side of the world about camping in a video game. I waited until he muted and then told him what I found. He did the perfect performance of shock, eyes wide, hand on chest like an actor in a high school play. What, babe? Whoa, that's serious. You need to call them right now. Probably a scam. Identity theft is crazy right now. My cousin's coworker had their Zelle hacked. It's all over the news. I asked him why the address on the application was his friend's then. He blinked once, the kind of blink people do when they're deciding on the lie. Well, I've used that address for stuff before, you know that, because you and I move around a lot. We don't, and sometimes it's just easier. I asked him why the deposits went to a bank I've never used, but that he did. He started to stammer, then he switched to offense. Why are you snooping in my bank? That's toxic, babe. I thought we had trust. No wonder the universe keeps messing with us when you have this energy. A switch flipped in me. I've swallowed so much. I've rationalized so much. I felt my face heat up and my hands went steady. Isn't that funny, how the body picks its own timing? I said very clearly, did you use my information to apply for a loan without my consent? He tried 3 different outs before he landed on the truth dressed as romance. It's like watching a child try keys in a lock. First, he blamed hackers. Then he said maybe it was my mom because she uses my mail sometimes. Then he softened his voice and reached for my hand and said, okay. Okay, baby, listen. I did it for us. We needed a cushion. I was going to surprise you. It was for the car, for that thing that's been making the weird noise, and for your mom. You were so stressed and I didn't want to add to it by asking for permission. I knew you'd freak out. I was going to fix it before you even knew. I'm going to pay it back. I got that contract. We're a team. Doesn't what's mine belong to you and what's yours belong to me? Not like that, it doesn't. I wish I could tell you I had some cinematic rebuttal, that I told him to get out right then and there and he slunk away with his console denting under his arm. What I did was say, you committed fraud, and he said, don't be dramatic. Then he told me if I reported it, I'd ruin his life. He told me I'd be taking bread out of his family's mouth, that his mom would have a heart attack if she heard her son was being accused of a crime. He told me no one would believe me anyway because we live together, because who applies for a loan in their girlfriend's name if it's not really a decision the two of them made together? He told me he'd sue me, then told me he loves me, then tried to have sex with me like that would reset the board. I slept on the couch. Then I didn't really sleep at all. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the 17-year-old version of me hunched over FAFSA forms, trying to translate government speak and promising myself I'd never let my life unravel like my mother's did after my father left. I thought about how many times I'd let someone off the hook because it was easier than making a scene, because I didn't have the energy to defend my own boundaries. I thought about that stupid hard inquiry email I ignored. I thought about the debt collector's voice sliding over the word collateral. In the morning, I called out of work. I filed a police report. The officer at the desk was kind, which felt worse somehow. He nodded like he'd seen this 10 times this week and said, I'm sorry, and typed my words into a report and handed me a case number. I filled out the FTC identity theft affidavit. I called all 3 credit bureaus and put a freeze and a fraud alert on my file. I called my bank and flagged everything and changed my passwords and shut down every auto pay that had his name anywhere near it. I called the original lender and sat on hold for 47 minutes until a guy named Trent came on and read me from his policy binder and told me the earliest their fraud department could call me back was within 7 to 10 business days. Jake paced downstairs while I did all this, occasionally storming up to tell me I was overreacting and making something small into something big. And do you really want to put a black mark on my record over a misunderstanding? At one point, after I emailed him a copy of the police report because the lender needed his information to proceed, his mother called me and left a voicemail that started, Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but family doesn't call the cops on family. We are not family. When I didn't cave, the tone changed. He moved into threats disguised as concern. If you do this, they might arrest me, babe. Do you really want that on your conscience? He raised his voice. He punched the wall near the thermostat, not at me. How generous. He said I wasn't perfect either, bringing up a time I got a speeding ticket. You broke the law then, too. He told me he'd pay me back, that he had a plan, that a friend owed him money, that his uncle could lend him something, that he'd get a second job. They were all words. There was never action behind his words. That's his signature. I recorded one of the conversations. I don't usually do that, but there's a thing that happens when you're constantly told your reality is a misinterpretation. You start building a paper trail just to be able to point to it later and say, see, I'm not crazy. He admitted on that recording in a roundabout, hedged, smirking way that he took the loan. I mean, I put my energy into it, he said, chuckling. But yeah, it's your name, so what? So what? I kicked him out. It wasn't loud, it was logistical. I had a friend come over while I put his things into bags. He tried to charm her. She wasn't having it. He called me names when he saw I'd boxed up his game controllers separately, and then he cried when I put his grandmother's blanket on top so it wouldn't get snagged. He kissed my forehead like that meant anything. He texted me pictures of us smiling at the beach 2 summers ago and said, "How can you throw this away over money?" As if this was about money and not about the audacity to hijack my life and then demand gratitude for doing it with a straight face. The calls continued for a while. Collections agents have a way of sounding like your stern aunt and your passive-aggressive coworker had a baby. I get it, they're doing their job. I also had to repeat I'm a victim of identity theft so many times I started to feel like I was the liar. The lender's fraud department finally called me back and opened a case. They asked for supporting documentation, which is funny when you think about how you support the absence of your consent. I sent the police report. I sent the affidavit. I sent copies of my ID and proof of my actual address, not the one he used. I would have sent my left hand if they asked. The investigator told me they would review internally and potentially request IP logs, but none of that is traceable for me to see. I only know what they tell me. I asked if they could send me the call recordings or application details, and they said, not at this time. Of course, I also called an attorney, a free consult. She sounded more tired than anyone I spoke to. She told me I did everything right. She told me to prepare for it to take months. She told me to document everything, which I have, a file on my desktop called Insurance Against Gaslighting, where every email and voicemail is sorted by date. Sometimes I open it and scroll like it's a flipbook of my boundaries growing a spine. I won't pretend it's a clean story with a neat bow. It's messy. There are still days when I'll be chopping broccoli and my phone will light up with a number I don't recognize, and my chest will do that drop. There are still letters, thick envelopes with windows in the front, and each one feels like a brick I have to swallow. There's a note on my fridge that says, "You were right," in black marker because I need to see it when the doubt creeps in. People like him, people who habitually take the easy way, rely on that doubt. They rely on you being too tired to push. They rely on your urge to be nice. I am tired, but I am not too tired. I told my boss finally what was going on after my performance dipped, and she asked me if I was okay in that careful HR way that says we care but also the Q3 goals. She surprised me. She gave me 2 days of PTO. She sat with me while I called the last bureau to extend the fraud alert and put a passcode on my file. She brought me tea. I wanted to cry more for that than anything else. I am so accustomed to being taken care of that basic decency short-circuits me. My mom tried to apologize. She said she felt guilty for being a burden and for letting him seduce his way into my life, which, ridiculous. It's not her fault her daughter wanted to be loved and believed a man who said he would carry some of the weight. She gave me a heavy stare and said, "People show you who they are when you say no." Then she made me grilled cheese like I was 8 and put on a dumb sitcom, and for the first time in months I laughed without an edge to it. Jake's family still hovers around like gnats. His cousin DM'd me to work it out privately. His mother sent a paragraph about forgiveness and men being under pressure. I resisted the temptation to send her the link to the state statute about financial exploitation. I blocked them all. He tried to show up once to pick up something he forgot and found the locks changed and texted me, "Wow." I sent him a screenshot of the police report and wrote, "Any further contact goes through the officer attached to this case." He told me I was cold. Better cold than gullible. Better cold than open to mold. I'm writing this now because if you are like me, if you work, and you take care of people, and you think being reasonable is a personality trait, you will be targeted by people who recognize competence as a bank account. They will tell you you're crazy when you notice the cup has been moved. They will repeat your own values back to you until you can't hear the difference between love and dependency. And when you push back, they'll say you're ruining their life. They will never consider the way they were shaping yours like clay. I'm also writing this because strangers on the internet have a way of being a jury we build for ourselves when our real lives are full of people saying, "Give him a chance." And it's not that serious. My whole life I've been accused of overreacting. I have been told I am too sensitive. I have had my intuition explained back to me by men who read the same article I did and somehow believed they invented it. When those debt collectors started reading my address and my social through the phone, the universe didn't tap on my shoulder. It slapped me in the face and said, "Wake up." So here's me awake. I froze my credit. I checked my mail like a hawk. I got LifeLock or its cousin. I don't even care if it's performative. It makes me feel like there's a fence. I moved his stuff out and the silence feels like a luxury hotel stay. I dance in my kitchen with my mom on speaker while we argue about whether cilantro tastes like soap. It does. I am tired, but this specific tired is righteous. I did the hard thing. I took the hit now to prevent 1,000 smaller cuts later. If you're reading this and thinking, that would never happen to me, I thought that too. I thought my spreadsheets and my good credit and my "I don't share passwords" speech would inoculate me. But sometimes the person you need to protect yourself from is the one sitting next to you under your thrifted blanket watching Netflix. Sometimes a person looks like help in his hunger. I didn't ruin his life. He did. I just stopped offering myself as the cushion when he hit the ground. And as for whether I was right, yes. Yes, I was. It still feels weird to say that without the parentheses of apology around it. But here we are. He used my name to get money and then tried to convince me that was love. I said no. I said that's fraud. I called the police. I filed the forms. I taught myself to tolerate the sound of a phone ringing without thinking the world is going to collapse. I am the one who has to live in this body. I am the one who has to look at my reflection and think, you got yourself out. And I did. That's the part no one can take out under my name. That's just me.